Welcome to Torah Andalus. In this channel, we study Torah in accordance with the teachings of Chachmei Andalusia. And I want to tell you something. Chachmei Andalusia didn't just give us explanations to the Torah. They didn't just give us explanations to Sugyot in the Gemara. More important than that, they gave us the tools through which we can study Sugyot in the Gemara, through which we can study and analyze Pesukim in the Torah. So we can see things that are new. We can go on a journey in the Torah and discover things that perhaps generations before us didn't discover. Not because we're wiser, but because we're using their teachings to go deeper and deeper and deeper. So I'm happy that you're joining me on this journey. And I want to now study something in Parashat Qedoshim, also previous week's Parashat HaCharemot. It describes things that for the Jewish people, for the Torah, are unacceptable. And in describing these things, things to do with sexual morality, things to do with improper, depraved behavior, the Torah uses two different words. It uses the word to'eva and it uses the word zimma. The word to'eva, and I'm not going to be dealing with that word too much, but I just want to give you a sense of what the word means. It means those things that we find to be unacceptable and even embarrassing behavior. There's a word in Arabic, aib. My father told me the word aib comes from the word to'eva, aib. So these are things that if somebody was to engage in that type of behavior, it would be repelling, it would be repulsive, and it would be embarrassing for the person who engages in that type of behavior. So there's improper types of relationships, which are not just improper, but just simply repulsive from the perspective of the Torah and from the perspective of Hashem. But then there's another word, the word zimma. The word zimma, for example, appears in Parashat Qedoshim in Perek Yotet Pasuk Mem. Pasuk Perek Yotet Pasuk Kaftet. The pasuk says, "Al tehallel et bittecha lehaznotaha, ve'lo tizneh haaretz u'maleah haaretz zimma." The pasuk says, "Do not desecrate your daughter by persuading your daughter to act in a promiscuous manner." Back then, in Gentile civilization, by the way, until today, in many countries in Asia, they do this, where the daughter is just a source of revenue. So they basically sell the daughter into, let's call it sex slavery, and they make money off that trade. So as repelling and as repulsive this is to us, this is still practiced in Asian countries till today. So it says, don't do that. Because if you do this, you're actually going to be increasing promiscuity in human society. And then the land will fill up with zimma. That's the word I want to study. What does the word zimma mean? And I'm using my father's Taj. My father, Alav Shalom, used to take notes, and he underlines what the Targum Ankelo says. An umaleah haaretz zimma. The Targum says v'titmeleh ara'a eisat hatim. Zimma is the advice or the persuasion that we receive from wicked people. So zimma is not just evil behavior, but it's an evil behavior that's promoted by a narrative, right? So there's evil people in charge. These people, and my father underlined these words, and he used the word media. You see, so it's the media, the legacy media in the United States, right? Those media organizations are there to promote a narrative. And when they promote a narrative that wishes to persuade people to engage in promiscuous behavior, in any of the types of behaviors enumerated in Parashat Qedoshim or Parashat HaCharemot, that's called zimma. And this is grammatically the peshat of the word. If you look at Rabbeinu Yonai ben Janach in Sefer HaShorashim, on the letters Zayin Mem Mem, he brings the word ka'asher zamam la'asot le'ahiv. Zamam means when somebody has premeditation to commit evil, right? So somebody in a premeditated fashion wanted to bring evil upon his fellow. And then he brings the word zima in that context. So zima doesn't just mean evil. It means a premeditated attempt to persuade towards evil. So what my father was saying when he said media, it doesn't just mean individuals who are there to make us do bad things, asat rishayim. But my father was emphasizing the fact that there's a media there, meaning these are institutions. There are institutions that are there to try to persuade us to act in a queer fashion, in a fashion that we find to be repulsive. I say, no, that's really good. Those are good things. Those people who act in that queer fashion, those are good people. And we should try to raise them up on a pedestal. So for the perspective of the Torah, the word zima is a very carefully chosen word. And it appears further in the parasha, and I think where it appears in the parasha is very telling. This is in Perek Kaf Pasuk Yodalet. The pasuk says, "Ve'ish asher yikach et isha ve'et imaha zimahi." If a person has relations with a daughter, a woman, and then that woman's mom, this is zima. Why is that zima? And there's a very important point here. Because normally, in normal societies, the healthy relationship between a mother and a daughter is one where there would be a little embarrassment, right? The daughter, right, would be a little embarrassed of her mom. Perhaps a mom would be a little embarrassed of her daughter. In these types of situations, of course, right? There's certain things that we keep to ourselves. Here the man is with the same woman, with the woman and her daughter, right? So you understand how there's a certain narrative that's being promoted that's telling these people, the things you usually find embarrassing, they're good. They're good. You should do it. There's nothing wrong with this. So it's so much so that a mother and a daughter are willing to be with the same man. So that's the idea of zima. Sometimes people think that things are coincidences. My father taught me that in the world of politics, political leaders don't make mistakes. I mean, they do sometimes, but oftentimes these mistakes are not mistakes. So, for example, you look at a dictatorship, and oftentimes in dictatorships, for example, in Stalin's Russia, in the communist Soviet Union, they used to promote licentiousness among the individuals. And you say, oh, that was just, they're just promoting licentiousness. That's not such a big deal. That's just what they believe in. They believe that everybody should be free to do whatever they want to do. If you want to live like a monkey, live like a monkey. A monkey has no sexual morality. You can be a monkey. Great message, right? So, but that's just it's just what they want. My father said, oftentimes things that look like a mistake are actually the point. By promoting this type of licentious behavior, what they're really trying to do is break down the individual's ties to the family, right? Because the flip side of family values, kibud ava'em, mora ava'em, respect your parents, respect the family, have fear and awe and reverence of your parents. The flip side of that is unbridled sexual adventure, right? Which is what they always want to promote. They want to promote this in Soviet countries and days of the Soviet Union, under the communists rather. They promoted this in some Israeli kibbutzim, the Shomer HaTzair kibbutzim. And they did this for a reason. They did this. They promoted this zima. Zima is media promoted evil, because by doing this, they can make you a proper subject of the state, right? Let's look at the worst dictatorship. Maybe some of you would agree with me that probably the worst dictatorship in the history of humanity was Nazi Germany. Do you know what preceded Nazi Germany? the Weimar Republic. Do you know that there are books written on the licentious behavior of the Weimar Republic? It was like, anything goes, do whatever you want to do, there are no rules. Freedom for Germany. People who engage in that type of freedom, zimma, government-sponsored licentious behavior, it always leads to dictatorships. Right? I just thought it was so interesting that the woke culture in the US, which promotes things that are contrary to the Torah, things that we would consider to be aib, embarrassing, they promote these things. Zimma, government promoted licentiousness. I think it's so interesting that just a few days ago, the Biden administration, President Biden, or whoever is managing that puppet sock, they want to have now a ministry of disinformation. Because all dictatorships had ministries of truth, right? From Goebbels in Germany to Stalin in the Soviet Union, they all had ministries of truth. By the way, calling a ministry of truth the ministry of disinformation is itself an act of disinformation, because it's a ministry of truth. So you see how there's no free lunch. If you live in a society which has zima, meaning government-sponsored licentiousness, the woke ideology in the US, you know what that leads to? That leads to a ministry of truth, right? That leads to dictatorship. There's no freedom, real freedom, meaning outside the context of the Torah, right? This freedom where they say, act like a monkey, be a monkey, you are a monkey, you're nothing more than a monkey. They want to treat you like a monkey in a cage, because a monkey can live in a cage. A human being who is free will reject this type of depraved behavior. A human being will reject a dictator. Am Yisrael, we reject all of these types of behaviors because we recognize it for what it is. It's a to'eva, it's aib, it's embarrassing, and it's zimma, it's promoted by wicked dictators.